right, welcome to another episode in our series For the Love of Star Wars, where we bring in a friend from the YouTube community to talk about a particular piece of Star Wars media they absolutely love. Our guest tonight is a man with a collection. It's Matt from Matt's Collection. Welcome back, Matt.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good.
Good.
Now, there are few who speak so positively about as much Star Wars media as yourself, I think. So Matt, what beloved Star Wars film, episode, or media have you chosen to talk about this week?
I think we're doing the part 6 of the Kenobi limited series.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, part 6.
Nice.
Excellent. So, yes, this was directed by Deborah Chow, of course, and she directed all 6 episodes of the series, coming off the back of directing 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. IMDb has a rating of 8.4 out of 10 for this episode, which is by far the highest of this particular series. So, yeah, it's a little facts for you there.
Not bad.
Oh, very good.
Not too bad, no. Not bad
B
rating.
plus can't be mad with that.
No, definitely. So, Matt, what is it then about this particular episode that you love?
What I like about it, it's the culmination of the journey of the show, and especially Kenobi's character. Because, I mean, if you look at him at the beginning of this, I mean, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, you know, you look at everything that he's lost. They've lost the Jedi Order. The Republic is gone. His friends are gone. His best friend, he thinks he's killed his best friend. You know, all these things that have happened, and he's clinging on to his one thing that he has, and that's protecting Luke. And at the same time, Owen's not even letting him anywhere near him. And you have a guy. I mean, he's definitely suffering from PTSD, and he's been for like a decade long. He's been suffering with PTSD, and so you see in this getting this mission from Bail Organa to go and save Leia, which was the whole reason that she was kidnapped, was to draw him out. But the fact that he's able to confront some things like he's had one run-in with Vader, and then he's got to break into the Inquisitorial's headquarters, which was right out of Jedi Survivor. I love that. But you get to this episode where he has, even in the previous episode, the way he's able to get the people from the path away, he's able to play against the things he knows about Anakin. With the ship, they were hiding in a different ship. So while Vader's going after thinking they're in this one ship, they were able to take off. And you find out, like at the end of the episode, they're kind of desperate. They don't have a hyperdrive, so they're getting chased by the Star Destroyer. And Obi-Wan at that point realizes, he knows what he has to do, and it's basically, and this is one thing, like at the end of Revenge of the Sith, people are like, well, why didn't he kill Vader? He leaves everything. He's not a murderer. And if he, like at the end of Revenge of the Sith, if he just went down there and chopped his head off with his lightsaber, it makes him a murderer, and hence he would, start going on the path of the dark side. Yeah. So, he leaves these things up to the will of the Force. Like, that's why he left him there, even though he was burning, and then in this episode, he knows he has to face him again. And the fact that, he's been at this whole time, he knows that Qui-Gon's out there, because he learned from Yoda that Qui-Gon's has found a way back, and yet has never talked to him. And he's been, not for lack of trying. But he ended up, here he realizes what he's got to do, and he draws the Empire away from the survivors by getting in the smaller ship and going down to whatever planet, I can't remember the name of the planet it was, and just awesome duel. I mean yes. If you're into, and the fight between the two of them is really, really good, and it's well choreographed. The dialogue between them is great. And I mean, even the part where Vader has the upper hand and he like knocks him down, buries him basically.
Yeah.
But Vader, but again, Luke is kind of, he had his training montage earlier in the series, so he's kind of back to where he was. And in that fight, I mean, the fight between the two of them, again, it's just incredibly good. And what's even better, it's only topped by their conversation at the end, where they go and like when Hayden Christensen did a fantastic job in this, Harney. They're going back and forth with the voices between him and James Earl Jones.
Yes.
And the whole bit where he's like, because like when Obi-Wan sees him after he slices through his helmet, and he's like, and he just breaks. He's, I'm sorry, everything that happened. I'm so sorry. And he's like, and then, Anakin's kind of coming through, and he's like, well, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker.
You didn't kill me. Yeah.
And I was like, that was blown away by that when I first saw it. It was just, and the fact again, and I've seen a lot of people their big critique here again is, you left him. He left Vader. He didn't kill him. And again, it's like he beat him. And if he went in and killed him, it would make him a murderer. And that's just not. It's not the Jedi way. It's not his way. So, and then, for him to get back, and it was looking at that whole arc for him in this series, so from somebody suffering PTSD and then finding purpose again and finding his way. And, he knows he has to, he goes back to Tatooine to protect Luke, that's his charge still. But at the same time, at the very end where he leaves, with Owen, in terms of Owen, he's like, I'm going to stay away. He just needs to be a boy right now. And, and he gets to meet him, you get he said the line thing, but it's, which is good. And then, it just kind of like, it was a good ending for the character, I guess, it was a good bridge between Revenge of the Sith and the original Star Wars.
Definitely. And I think Ewan McGregor sort of got back into the role really well, but also he played that part of PTSD so well as well.
Yeah, exactly.
He did such a good job. He's the perfect. Obviously, that's why they picked him to play Obi-Wan, but he is the perfect person to do that. And
he did a fantastic job.
He was just fantastic.
I have a lot of friends. I mean, I was in the military for 20 years, and I have friends that they're suffering from PTSD. I know how devastating it can be for somebody. So just to see that way they handled that in that series, I thought it was well done. I enjoyed that I was glad they took it up the way they did.
Definitely. And the series, it didn't get a great deal of love in general, did it? But I recall when we watched it back, enjoying it. The first time through, I remember enjoying it. It has some brilliant moments, and this episode definitely has its moments. And as you say, they teased Qui-Gon early on in the series.
Master Qui-Gon.
Well, took you long enough.
Beginning to think you'd never come.
I was always here, Obi-Wan. You just were not ready to see. Come on, you've got a ways to go.
That was just awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, and we were we expecting it? We were all hoping for it, but didn't Liam Neeson deny all rumors?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Bald-faced liar, that one. I'm glad it really worked out well. I loved it at the end. And it was neat because, like, in Legends, like I was this book. I don't know if you guys read it, The Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader. Excellent book. There's a scene at the end where they go to Tatooine, and basically it's like Owen's walking through a marketplace in Mos Eisley with Luke, and Obi-Wan's kind of just following him, keeping tabs on him, and they see like a news feed of something, and Darth Vader's in there, and Obi-Wan is actually talking with Qui-Gon. Is like, well, is that Anakin? And so he gets his confirmation Anakin's still alive at the end of that book. And it's Legends now, but I, that was another thing. Like in the series, it was like when he finds out, like it was like, I think it's at the end of episode 2 when Reva says to him that Anakin Skywalker's still alive. He thought he was dead, and so it was, that was kind of neat. At the, he knows he's out there still, kind of thing. But he's leaving it up to the will of Force. But like, and even like when he finally he's riding the Opie back through the Dune Sea, basically going to wherever his, guessing it's going to his hut that you see in A New Hope.
Yeah.
But he's like, and Qui-Gon appears and he's like, well, I've been here. It's just like, you just weren't ready to hear me, kind of thing. And so I thought it was really, I thought it was very but it was a really nice ending of the series. The way they did that. And it was like, well, we got work to do now. So
yeah,
that was really good.
Martin, anything to add?
Well, I mean, Matt's pretty much hit every beat there, really. But I mean, this episode. No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, this is about your favorite episode. I mean, it has amazing moments in this episode. I mean, as Matt alluded to, the moment where Obi-Wan and Vader / Anakin are talking to each other after the fight. It's just such an emotional moment, and I'm, as everyone knows, one of the biggest fans of the prequels, and to have Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen together again in a scene for me was just really special. And it's, as soon as the series was announced, this was the moment I was most looking forward to, and it didn't let me down at all. I thought it was fantastic. It's a great, I think, as Matt said as well, it's a great culmination of the series, this episode. It's like all the plot threads sort of coming together, and while I wasn't overly enthusiastic about some of the plot threads, the Vader Obi-Wan plot thread was, riveting all the way through and captivating. And I think I would actually really enjoy to see a second season after this episode. I was like, oh, they've got to do another season, but I can understand why they obviously wouldn't do a second season. It would get a bit convoluted, but this episode was so good in terms of those two characters that I didn't want them to just leave it there. I wanted to see more. So it was a great episode.
Yeah, you may have already mentioned it, Matt, but do you have a favorite scene, character, or dialogue from this episode?
Oh, I really think my favorite scene is the conversation that Obi-Wan and Vader have after their fight, after he defeats him. Just the back and forth, the emotion that's there in both of them. And just, I mean, Hayden Christensen did a fantastic job, and it was like, this is a guy that, after Revenge of the Sith kind of just walked away from acting kind of thing. For him to come back, and the fans, the way they've embraced him coming back has been fantastic. I mean, between this and his scenes in Ahsoka were really well done. So, but yeah, I really liked that. Really brought it home for me, because it was like one of those, when they first pitched the idea, I was like, well, Kenobi can't leave Tatooine. He has to be protecting Luke. And the way they, the only thing I guess they could pull him out of there is, well, Leia's in trouble. And so I did like what they did, and I know it was like, you're kind of afraid that it was like what I didn't want them to really mess up when they meet in the Death Star, so, and I don't think they did with this. And just the two of them together like that, it was well done, and especially that part with that conversation between the two of them was just, it was like they built the whole series around that scene. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was handled very well.
I can't argue with that, really. It was all about the battle for me, but also the speech afterwards. But the battle in general between them was so well done, as you've already said, and had its intensity about it. The only way it sort of falls short is the fact that we know they both survive. But
but I mean, it was the same way.
Not that that's really a bad thing, but.
Well, you knew in the prequels all that, you knew pretty much who was safe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was it. But yes, the mix, the way they mixed the voices of James L. Jones.
Oh, I know, and that was so well done. And the lighting too, it kind of goes between blue and red depending on if it's Hayden or James Earl Jones's voice. I thought it was that was really good.
Really good direction.
Very well done.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but are we in the minority with that? Back when that happened the first time and people were talking about it, was there a bit of
I don't
people
I
saying
don't
that
know
they
the
didn't love
the
that?
because most of the people I've talked to, I mean, it was like, I watched like this is like, a little over 2 years ago, and it was
Yeah,
Paul's
it was
Collectibles
a while back.
was doing the breakdown of each episode for that one, and they were generally positive on that one, on that show, so I think the only ones I ever saw that didn't like it were the people that were just not going to like it, kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
we
they were
get
just
those.
going to look
Yeah,
into it, and they were going to nitpick every little thing, and then, I mean,
yeah,
is the show perfect? No. I mean,
yeah,
I think they could have handled Reva's character at the end a lot better than they did. I mean,
yeah.
at the same time, I think there's one, if you're going to do it like a spin-off show showing what happens to her, I wouldn't mind watching, because I think there's still more, because I mean, there's more to that character. There might be more story to tell. But a lot of people were like, "Well, I don't like the Reva character." You're not supposed to like her.
Yeah,
She's not supposed to be a character like, "Oh, that's the character." You're not supposed to like her. I mean, she's a fallen Jedi, and she's just out for revenge, and she's out for herself. I mean, it's just like, and at the end, I mean, I think a little bit more with a little bit more on her with the at the end with her conversion. I think if they had done some more for that, like her just finding, I think they could have done something better than like with her just finding and just not having the will. I mean, she, revenge and hatred has kept her going for 10 years.
yeah.
Then all of a sudden she can't, she knows that that's that's Anakin's son, but she can't do anything. She can't, she all of a sudden I'm glad, I think there's, showing that there's a spark of good still in her, that she couldn't kill him, but it was the fact that nobody could have gotten to her in time, kind of thing. I think they would have done something different where, where Obi-Wan does get back in time to find her and stop her. Maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, they didn't hire me to write it. But I think that would have been done differently, and it might have been better, but it could have been worse too. So,
well, that's it. Martin, I'm sure it's the same scene, is it?
No, in fact,
Is it not?
there's no. There's two. If you will indulge me, there are two scenes that I enjoy most in this episode, and Adam particularly. Matt, sorry, I do apologise. You probably never heard me say this before, but Adam's heard me say it many times. As I've got a bit older in years, I tend to watch things these days, and where I wouldn't have reacted years ago, if there's an emotional scene now, I tend to all of a sudden have this weird feeling like I'm struggling like not to cry at scenes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not like bawling my eyes out and like making a scene, but I find like now when I'm watching an emotional scene, especially a well written emotional scene, that I tend to perhaps well up a little bit and feel the emotion that's probably meant to be felt when you watch these scenes. And there's two scenes I want to talk about, but the first one is when Obi-Wan goes back to Alderaan and he returns the droid to Leia and has a quick chat with Bail and his wife, and then he turns around and kneels down to Leia, and he.
When I said before that I didn't know your parents, Princess Leia Organa, you are wise, discerning, kind-hearted. These are qualities that came from your mother. But you're also passionate and fearless, forthright. And these are gifts from your father. Both were exceptional people who bore an exceptional daughter.
And I have to say, I was sitting there today. I watched this episode again today. It's probably only the second time I've ever watched it since it originally aired. And I was sitting there going, not gonna cry, not gonna cry. I don't know why, but I thought it was fantastic. It was the best scene in the show, bar none. I really felt that scene, and I think it's because I'm such a prequel fan, and I'm such a fan of those two characters, and I'm such a fan of the journey that those characters took, that to see someone verbalizing, is that a word? Putting in words a description of characters from the prequel trilogy to someone we're going to love in the original trilogy was something we've never seen before. And we've got a small bit from Obi-Wan in A New Hope telling Luke about his father, but I mean, really, there wasn't too much of that. And this scene I thought was fantastic, and Ewan McGregor was absolutely amazing delivering that speech. And throughout the entire series, the girl Lyra, I forget her name.
Vivian.
She was fantastic.
Lyra
She's a
Blair.
great actress.
She was brilliant, and she was doing what I was doing while I was watching it, try not to well up and cry because when he was telling her this stuff, and it was a fantastic scene. I've heard a lot of people, it's not just me, I've heard a lot of people say that this scene is fantastic, and the icing on the cake, of course, to make that emotional hit is the fact that you've got Leia's theme playing over the top of it, from John Williams from the original trilogy. That for me is not only my favorite scene in this episode, but my favorite scene in this series. And people who know me again will be shocked because they know I'm dark side Martin, who loves a good dark side scene, but
he also loves a good cry.
I also love a good cry these days.
No,
I'm comfortable, I'm old enough and comfortable to admit it. That's fine. But there's another scene that I loved in this episode. Actually, before I go to that scene, I'm going to say an honourable mention is obviously Ian McDiarmid turning up as Palpatine.
That was a great cameo.
That's a great cameo.
And a great bit of dialogue as well.
Yeah. It's kind of him sort of doing the same thing he did in Jedi, where he's questioning Vader's loyalties and, whether he's still actually, the dark side, if you like. But that aside, my second favourite scene is, and Adam is going to be not surprised by this, it's my favourite character, one of my favourite characters in all of Star Wars, the greatest Jedi Knight to have ever lived, Qui-Gon Jinn. When he appears at the end to Obi-Wan, I was wanting this from the moment the series was announced. I thought Qui-Gon's got to be in this show. He's got to be in this show. It's not really going to, equal canon, because obviously in the Clone Wars, Qui-Gon says to Yoda that he never learned the ability to be able to appear as a Force ghost. He never sort of, learned that skill. But that's fine. I don't mind.
Live action trumps animation.
Exactly. I was willing to let this go. And those few little lines he had were just absolutely Qui-Gon nailed on. Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, together again, as we saw in episode 1. I could not have been happier when that scene happened, because it was the last scene of the show. It capped off an episode that, for the most part, I loved. But it capped off, for me, that was what I really wanted more than anything in the world. And I left the show absolutely over the moon because I got that scene. And when you get those scenes, you often think to yourself, well, if he's come back in this, he might come back again. So that's all I wanted. So those are my two favourite scenes. I'm sorry I've gone on for too long, like I always do.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I may not want to see like a Kenobi season 2, but I wouldn't mind like if they have like another show that takes place during that time, that like they end up, that he has like a cameo in it, or him and Qui-Gon. That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
To be quite honest with you, Matt, I would be happy for a season 2 that revolved around 6 episodes where Obi-Wan was in a cave chatting to Qui-Gon, and they were talking about the Force and how he became one with the Force, and how he's spoken to the midichlorians and all. That's the stuff that I love about Star Wars, and that's the stuff that I want to know more about. And I appreciate that we don't want to know too much because it takes the mystery away. But the fact that Qui-Gon was the first Jedi to learn this power is just, it's just so exciting to me to learn more and more about that stuff. So yeah.
Well, what I like about that, if it's something like that, it adds weight to. I mean, there's already plenty in it, but when Obi-Wan and Vader are fighting on the Death Star in the original Star Wars, and he says, "You can't win. If you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine." That adds to. I mean, and then you think about like Yoda's speech in Empire Strikes Back. I think Yoda has the two best speeches in all of Star Wars. It's the one in Empire Strikes Back and the one in The Last Jedi. But when he sits there and talks about, we're not matter, we're beings of light and energy, and this whole bit that he goes through on that, it's just it's amazing, and it's so profound. And then it's right up there. It's probably only second to, like, barely second is when he's talking about how failure is a teacher. Learn, pass on everything. Even your failures. That's the best lessons you have. It's so something like that. Yeah, seeing him, Qui-Gon and Kenobi just sitting in the hut. All I could think of though is there's that one comedian, he does like the deep fake faces. I know, like it's so good. It's Kenobi, Anakin, and Qui-Gon's ghost.
Do you know what? That was just going through my head as well.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Maybe something a little less campy than him. But yeah, no, that would be kind of neat to see.
Right, so Matt, then, what makes this feel like Star Wars to you?
Well, I mean, you're dealing with some of the most central characters in it. I mean, the central character of the prequel is Obi-Wan, and then the central character for the entire saga is Vader. And their showdown in this one, I mean, it's when they first meet and Vader just literally wipes the floor with him, and just is just trying to hurt him, and Obi-Wan gets away merely because of just dumb luck. But just the fact when they come back together and now he's had that, Kenobi's found his purpose again, and he knows he has to face him again, and even though he's going into it and where he's kind of back to where he was, he's still not sure he can beat him. And I mean, even when when Vader's like buried him with rocks and everything else, he's still feeling, he almost succumbs to fear in that moment, and it's for him to overcome that. I thought it was really well done, because I mean, this is a guy who's been suffering from PTSD for a decade, and for him to overcome it in that moment and do what needs to be done, I thought was really good. And I know also, he got little bits of hope that there are more out there. Like, he knows Quinlan Voss is out there now, but the path has been helping others. And he's been able, in his own way, has been able to help keep that alive. I thought was really, that really was, that, like I said, this was the culmination of the whole series, and I thought it was a really good journey. And, so for starting off where he wasn't very sure of himself, he was afraid because he's already failed before. And so now he's like, but if I don't do this, then it's for nothing, so. And I like that quality. That's that quality that Obi-Wan has always had, So it's I like that, and they did a really good job kind of portraying that in there. I mean, where the denouement of the show, where where he goes back to Alderaan, like you were talking about, it's great scenes there, or even when he's talking to Owen at the end, and then seeing Qui-Gon. It's a great ending to the episode, end of the series overall. I mean, this whole episode is really about it's the Battle of Heroes part 2. It really was centralized around the duel between the show off between Kenobi and Vader, and I think they just did a fantastic. Deborah Chow did a great job directing it, and everything else. And everybody just did an awesome job with it. And so I mean, the story wise, I mean that's Star Wars, that fight between good and evil, And you look at somebody who was, you look at Vader, who was, Anakin Skywalker was like the greatest hero of the Republic, and then just became its ultimate villain.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
I'd agree. But also, not to sound like a broken record, but I think it's as much to do with the lightsaber duels as anything. I think that's, for me, what Star Wars is not all about, but it's a great deal to do with it. But on top of that, I felt like the soundtrack to this series,
They did, yeah.
this episode, the series, very in keeping with Star Wars. Yeah. Martin?
Yeah, you just reminded me, actually, the Obi-Wan theme, which I believe is the last bit of Star Wars music that was ever written by John Williams, is just absolutely I love that tune. I actually listen to that every now and again because I really enjoy the long form version of it. I listen to it a fair bit. But yeah, in terms of what makes it feel like Star Wars to me, I'm going to have to steal Matt's answer a little bit here. I think we recorded a fair few of these episodes about people's favourite Star Wars episodes, Star Wars media, if you like, and quite a lot of the time it's the style in which it's filmed and the dialogue choices and things like that. And I don't think this series necessarily as a whole would be appropriate for that answer, but I'm going to say exactly what Matt said, really, is the fact that you've got probably the two out of possibly three main characters in all of Star Wars: Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin / Darth Vader. And for the most part, I think that this episode in no way failed either of them. I think they did a fantastic job of the next chapter of their being, if you like, after the prequels. I think in a previous episode we mentioned how Obi-Wan perhaps is the model of what a Jedi Knight should be, and we saw him lose that at the beginning of this series. But by the end of this series, in this episode particularly, every choice he makes is for the good of others. He leaves the ship with all of the refugees on because he knows if he doesn't, they'll probably die. He fights Darth Vader and has the opportunity to actually kill him again, but decides not to because it's not the Jedi way. He runs back to Tatooine to help Luke, and decides that Reva should be given the benefit of the doubt, if you like, and let go. And then he becomes a better Jedi for all of that. So the Jedi that we saw at Revenge of the Sith has only got better because of the experiences that he had in this show and this episode particularly. So for me, the character of Obi-Wan is elevated to an even higher level than he was in the prequels, which is why when we see him in The New Hope, he's a lot of people's favorite character, and understandably so because of the experiences that he's been through. Does that make sense? I'm probably
you actually made me look at the bit with Reva a little differently now. It's because like I was saying before, like a lot of people complain, well, how many people were killed because he didn't kill Vader? And I was like, well, it's just not the Jedi way. He's not that would be murder. And, he's leaving Obi-Wan, like even in Revenge, he leaves everything to the will of the Force. You probably learned that from Qui-Gon, but the even like going back there, I mean, it wasn't, there's the line in A New Hope where he says to Han, because like Han's like he doesn't believe in the Force. It's like he's like there's no mystical energy field that determines my destiny. It's all a bunch of simple tricks and nonsense. He was like, I call it luck when Luke deflects the bolts, and he's like, well, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck, and he's right, because for him, everything is the will of the Force. There is no luck. So it wasn't luck that Reva didn't kill Luke. It was the will of the Force that she not murder him. So that spark of goodness that was still in her. It's another way to look at that scene. So I actually have a little better thought about that now. I think it's a little different perspective.
Yeah, Well, that's well summed up. And I think we need to wrap it up there. But thank you, Matt, for joining us, and also for choosing that episode to talk about. That was really good fun.
This has been a great idea.
Good to go back and
Thanks
watch.
for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks. It's good to go back and watch that one. Thanks everyone out there for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Let us know in the comments if you like this one and what you liked about it. And after all that positive chat, I'm sure Martin's off for a cry, so we're going to have to leave it there. We'll catch you next week.